I'm reading a typo verbatim. That's why. Sorry.
That's okay.
All right. Take two. Jeffrey Mangus is the ghostwriter of over 30 books, including five number one Amazon bestsellers for pretty much all of the big five publishers. If you're a business leader or entrepreneur who's thought about writing a book or a ghostwriter working on business books, this episode is for you. Welcome to Notes from a Ghost, a podcast about stories and the people who tell them. My name is Charlie, and I'm a ghostwriter. I love a good story. I hope you enjoy this one. Jeff, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. Yeah.
I'm excited to get into it. I think you have written so many books. I think a lot of what you have to say is going to be helpful, not just to authors who are thinking about working with a ghostwriter, but to ghostwriters who are either just getting started or kind of in a transition phase in their career.
I've always been a person that has believes in helping others, and I hope that today's episode does that. It helps someone starting out to get their wings and get things going for them. I really hope that does transpire today.
Well, one kind of common theme of folks I've talked to on this show, and I definitely put myself in this category, is it seems like a lot of ghosts come to this work from unconventional backgrounds, and that can mean any number of things. Tell me about your journey to ghostwriting.
Well, my journey to ghostwriting is one that I've written about, and I, no matter how much I study it, it's like still kind of an unbelievable thing. Over my years, throughout the years, I've worked in cardiovascular surgery. I own two real estate companies. I've done so many things over the course of my lifetime, but I've always been a writer. But I've always just dabbled in it. I mean, years ago, I really was working in some of the children's book arena. I had some successes. I had like seven different children's magazine articles published. Made a few dollars, but it was a fun thing. But I never ever dreamed of doing it, professionally. But then in 2017, I got a flesh eating bacteria in my left foot, and I ended up going septic. And my heart was failing, my kidneys were failing. I literally was on death's door, and I faced five amputation surgeries, losing my foot first, and then the infection was so bad they had to keep going. And finally, they did stop right below the knee, and that I thank God for. But it was that moment when I, going through the depression and the grief and the shock of losing a limb, and I was laying helpless, literally. I mean, I could not get out of bed. I couldn't go to the restroom on my own. I had needed help for everything. It was that moment where I realized that, I was 50 years old. I'm like, all right, Jeff, what is it? What is the one thing? Because you're obviously, your life has just changed. Everything's switched, the whole trajectory. And I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what to do with my life. I was really down. And so the way I was really dealing with it was I was kind of journaling. I started journaling my thoughts and really writing it and getting these. And it was helping me cope with what was going on inside. And that journal writing turned into my first book. That first book, was it good? No, it wasn't. It was a pretty terrible book, but it started to sell. And I realized that what I experienced could help others. But I did some, and I don't want to sound cliche, but I truly did, while I was helpless, laying flat on my back, nowhere to go. No, I did some deep soul searching and asked myself, what is it? What is that one absolute thing that you want to do with the rest of your life, Jeff? And the answer was writing. After the journals, and I saw the power in it, how I was doing, helping myself. I decided to pursue writing, but ghostwriting still wasn't on the table yet. I was thinking about just writing my own books, becoming an author, and trying to pursue it that way. And it really wasn't even about money. It was just about having that just that moment of I want to do this. I want to do this for the rest of my life and not do anything else. And after that first book, a friend of mine who was a very notable person in the innovation industry. He approached me and said, "Hey, I see you write a book. I saw you write a book. Would you be interested in ghostwriting a book for me?" And I knew what ghostwriting was, but I never ever considered doing it myself. Like how me ghostwrite a book for someone else. I had no idea what I was doing, none. But the opportunity was too great, and I felt like it was like serendipitous for sure. It was like all coming into my world. So I accepted the challenge, and I call it a challenge because I was a new writer, rookie, no idea what I was doing, but I was exploring the waters. And so I wrote my first book proposal, very first one, and that book proposal ended up selling that book to HarperCollins Leadership right out of the gate. So I went from rookie writer to suddenly I'm in the big wigs, with the editors and agents, and I mean my world was completely, I mean it was spinning, but in a good way. But I was scared. I admit I was very scared. Like, this is do or die here. You got a major traditional publisher, a major one, and this book's going to go around the world. You got, everyone's looking at this thing. You got editors looking at it, copy editors, agents. There's going to be the author alone. He was a great to work for. But again, I had a lot of eyeballs on the work. And but I faced the challenge. I stepped up, and that book ended up becoming a number one bestseller. So I'm very excited. I'm very proud of that. But that was my entry into ghostwriting, and I haven't stopped since. And it's been since 2017, and I'm now 30 books later, and still got 3 more to come out that are coming out here in the next month or two, actually, from different authors, and got some projects in the wings. So yeah, that's how I got started in ghostwriting.
Well, and to your point about helping people, it sounds like your experience of that, finding that joy of your own experience becoming an author really helps you help other people find that and make that dream come true for themselves.
It really does. I'm a member of the Association of Ghostwriters, and it's a wonderful association.
Yes.
Yes, Marsha Layton Turner is a fantastic, fantastic person. I've never worked directly with her, but I consider her a mentor. There's a lot of individuals in that group, but there's a lot of new members as well. And I've been a member for quite a few years now. I find I love being able to give insight, to help new ghostwriters out there. As a matter of fact, I just published a book. It's on Amazon. I'm not trying to give a plug, but it's called Behind the Sheets: Turn Your Passion for Writing into a 6-figure ghostwriting career. And that book dives deep into how to actually run a ghostwriting business. I left no stone unturned. Everything from setting up your business as a corporation, how to manage clients, how to detect red flags with a client, everything that a ghostwriter endures during a daily basis. I put into that book and tried to help others out there be successful. And one thing I address in the book, people say, well, why would you do that? Why would you give away the secrets to your success? There's no secret to success. It's just hard work. And in the ghostwriting world, there's so many people out there that want to write books. There's really no competition. There's not. We can't be competitive. We have to be, come together as a team all around the world. Guys like Jordan Ring and Tim Jacobs and there's a Tim Cook. He's another great one. Laura Schaefer, all these guys, these men and women out there, Marsha Layton Turner, they're all wonderful people, and they're all these gentlemen and women are always willing to help others, and I want to be in that boat as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I try to stay current on what kind of projects my fellow ghosts. I'm a AOG member too, and I always want to know what people are looking for, because I'd so much rather send something your way if it's not right for me, but it would be right for you or for someone else.
Right. I'm the same way. I refer out things. Absolutely. So if it's not my wheelhouse, I do the same thing. Absolutely.
And I pay anyone a referral fee. If because if it's a big project that I wasn't going to have otherwise, I'll happily cut someone a check for 15% of it or whatever.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I have no problem with that as well. So
It's a kind of funny early piece of advice I got about that is don't put that in an email because it will just immediately look like spam. So you're
that's
better off
true.
just on
That's
a
true.
phone call saying, "Hey, by
Yeah,
the
yeah,
way."
right. That's good
Um,
advice. That's good advice.
I want to stick with the question about your background for a second because one thing um, I'm fascinated by is I've worked uh, with some people who have difficult stories to tell, with veterans, with survivors of various things, and I
Yeah,
have um, some of my own experiences that what I guess you could call type two fun that were not good to and were hard to go through, but in retrospect gave me something valuable. I'm wondering, did your experience with your leg and the recovery from that, do you feel as though that has given you something you can bring to the process of telling someone's story and it maybe has made you receptive to different kinds of stories?
that is an absolutely excellent question. And to answer that, yes, I'm going to emphatically say yes, because it's odd. It's odd. Now we're getting into the deep of the heart of the matter here. It's, on a daily basis, I can honestly say that when I'm telling stories, because that's one thing I love to do when I work with these authors, is story, tell their story, and whether it's business, memoir, it's always a story. There's always a story behind the scene, and I love telling that story. But I draw upon my experience. Uh, you know, I've written memoirs about drug addiction and pain and I can go, I mean, everything from, affecting families. And I mean, all of these things I pull upon what I went through, not only the going through the pain, going through the shock, but also going through the triumph of it, right? Is, when I pulled myself out of the dark and pulled myself up out of the bed and I crawled across the floor for the first time on my hands, to get to where I needed to go. These are all little steps that I every single day when I listen to an author tell me what they went through, the tragedies, the tragedies they've experienced. I relate to it. It resonates with me, and I'm able to pull from those feelings that I have inside to bring their story to life. It's a strange situation. It's a strange way to say it, but yes, I pull upon my pain and what I went through to make others' story shine. I really do. It's a great question. Thank you.
What is it that Muddy Waters said that the blues is a bad thing happening to a good man?
That's right. Exactly right. I'm a blues guy. So
Oh, I I actually I was a much more minor surgery, but I was recently laid up and recuperating from something, and um I got into acoustic blues. I have like this really small parlor guitar that I started learning to play.
nice. Yeah.
It's
I
fun.
love that, man, because I'm actually I've been a guitarist since I was 6 years old, and I played professionally. I don't know if you saw any of that about me, but
Yeah,
I played
someone said to ask you about that. Music is part of your story.
more. Music is the probably the main part of my story, and I want to segue into that on how I use it as my ghostwriting as well. In my ghostwriting as well, I'm a guitarist. I have guitars around me as we speak. I mean, it's just part of my blood. It just is what it is, and I love the blues and I always have. But yeah, I played professionally. I toured the country for many years. I was in Los Angeles, California. I played Sunset Strip in Hollywood and all the clubs, the whiskey and the Roxy, and just chasing a dream. And I left everything on the table. I have no regrets. It was a great moment of my life. I'm actually writing a memoir about that time in my life, and it's called Blues Lessons. That's the title of the book, and I'll say it now.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
really excited about this book, and it's not a book per se as all the sex and drugs. It's more along the lines of the what I experienced as an individual who I did not do drugs. I was the one in the band that did not do drugs. I didn't even drink alcohol. I was always introduced as a sober one in the band, and I experienced life, in a rock band sober, and I was able to see and witness things that, it was just an incredible time. So yeah, but I use my, and I tell my authors this too, and this is, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but this is everything to do with ghostwriting. Having that music ability, the be able to hear a song, play a song, recall a song in my head, notes and everything like that, is probably the absolute catalyst to capturing an author's voice for me. I'm able to memorize their image, how they speak, and when I'm writing for them, I literally have no distractions. I have just them in my image in my head. I just tap into their world somehow. Like it's like an actor getting into character. And then during the day, when I'm in an author's voice all day long, I literally have to decompress and come out and find Jeff again. I have to do that. It's really a strange thing. And then years ago, I'm sure you probably relate. You know what I'm talking about. You get so deep into an author's world that it's sometimes you got to find yourself back out of it. So.
I I don't know if this has anything to do with there's a couple weird little things that I think are ghostwriting related when I look at my own works. And one of them is that I've always been very good at impressions. I and like yeah, in high school, I had this one friend who like if there was ever like a lull in the conversation, he'd ask me to do different South Park characters and like I could like do Butters, do Cartman. Um but I maybe I think there is something to having that ear, developing that ear, um noticing someone's tendency to choose not just word choice, but like a turn of phrase.
Well, yeah, and then also, when you meet with these authors, you the emotions that come out during these meetings. You try. Now, words don't express those emotions; they can say them, but having that image in the author, in my head of how that made that author feel. Were they sad? I mean, did it break them down? What were they feeling? It's those are things you have to take into consideration and in the writing itself, and that's a skill in itself, and I really believe that's one of my highest skills is to be able to do that and keep that author's image in my head that way.
When it comes to someone who's getting started in ghostwriting, what would be something you know now that you wish you had known when you were
Um,
starting out?
I wish that, of course, when I got started, I wish someone would have told me um, how challenging it is not only to write a book, but how challenging it is to be a ghostwriter in itself. Because you got to be tough skinned. You can't be thin skinned. You got to be able, I mean, every single day, to me, it's a brave act. And let me explain what I mean. I mean, every single day when say I write a chapter for an author, especially a new author, and I send it over for the first time, that's the first time that author is seeing that work, their words written by someone else. I call it author shock, and I do try to explain that to them before they read these things. But every single day as a ghostwriter, you have to be tough skinned because you're putting your neck out every single day. You're putting your ego on the table. You're laying yourself out, and you're vulnerable to reviews, feedback, negative feedback, criticisms, and you have to be tough. It's a tough part of it, but that's what makes you a better writer, and that's why I take it. I take every single criticism and feedback that I get, and most of the time I say the word criticism. It's not really criticism. I get feedback from authors because they know I'm doing the best for them. But I take that and use it to better myself, to better the work. To again, it's all a catch-22. The better I am at what I do, the easier it is for the authors and to get their books written and to be able to make myself invisible and make sure the author shines. But again, I think if someone would have told, I wish someone would have told me how tough it would be on what you got to do internally as a ghostwriter every single day. It's not weekly. It happens every single day. It takes guts to be a ghostwriter.
You mentioned the delivery of those first pages, and I remember one of the first times I did that. It wasn't the first time ever because I'd learned what I do. I don't know how you approach this, but I will say it's a rough draft, but I've
Oh
actually,
yeah, I,
you know where I'm going with this.
I do.
So,
I call them Franken drafts. I didn't coin that phrase. My mentor Derek Lewis coined that phrase. He calls them Franken drafts. You're like Frankenstein. You're putting things together. You're building. You're shaping. So yeah, I definitely let them know up front what to expect.
well,
Exactly.
in the case of this, the one I'm thinking of, I may have said it was a rough draft, but I had been sweating blood and staying up all hours and just for a relatively slim number of pages. And I delivered them and I said, this is just a first pass, rough draft, like just to give you an idea of kind of where I'm at. There was kind of a long pause, and he's like, "Yeah, this is pretty good for a rough draft."
Yeah, I love it.
Oh,
I
I have a
love it.
lot of work to do.
Again, right there, because see what you just described is what people don't see behind the scenes as a ghostwriter. You slaved very hard and you stressed about it, and to give the best work. And I applaud you. That's what we all do every single day. And that's what I do. I strive. Like I delivered a new first chapter yesterday to a new author, and I was sweating bullets. Literally, I was antsy all evening long, waiting to hear from him. And it of course it turned out fine, turned out great. But yeah, just waiting on that. That boom. What are they going to say? But I worked very hard on that first draft. I worked days on that first draft, just to make sure that it hit all the points and try to get things started on the right foot.
When you're working with like a founder or business owner,
Mm-hmm.
how do you find the book in their business? Something that's gonna sustain a narrative and not just this should have been a blog post.
That's a great question. What I do normally is I ask that leader to they need to understand their work and what they do and bring their skill sets unique. And so I ask them to uh, not only basically who's their target reader, but also their target audience. I mean, a lot of these business memoirs, there's an audience out there, people that are going to either buy from them or learn something from them, gets that kind of thing. Um, I do instruct them to, because I get a lot of this. Hey, I get people say, "Hey, there's a 100 books on this idea." I'm like, "Yes, but they didn't. You didn't write those books. They did, and this is your book." So, but I asked them to really dive deep into the problems that 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 their business solves, and how can they relate that to the page in helping others that way as well. You got to find the problems of the target reader or the target audience. What problems are they having that you as the author can bring to the page that's going to help that and solve those. When you solve people's problems and in a unique way, that's where the book come to life, and that's what I believe there. Yeah.
It's an interesting point that one that I just talked about recently with Jordan Ring, how a lot of first time authors don't understand that it is a good thing if there are books similar to yours out in the world, that's not a weakness.
That's right. That's exactly right. When I hear someone saying there's no book out there like it, that gives me a red flag. There's a reason why somehow, you're right. I mean, having multiple books in a certain category is a good thing. And the goal is to make your book, shine over in different angles, different perspectives, bringing the same topic, but bringing it uniquely through that author's voice. I think that's where the magic happens, where the book happens. Yeah.
And even you can look at your own reading habits. I mean, I love thrillers in my recreational reading, and
Yeah.
I'm never thinking, oh, there's enough spy novels out there that whatever.
That's right. Exactly. There's never enough, right? You can't. I love thrillers too. I'm an avid reader, and this is just a fraction of my books. Honestly, it really is. I got more books all around, but I read 4 or 5 books at a time, and my wife's like, "How do you do that? How do you know what's going on?" It's easy because each book's different. Each book has a different thing, and it has a different message. So, but my brain is always just not. I'm like a mixture of thrillers, and I do love self-help. So I'm like I might have a thriller book and then a book over here to teach me how to write. It's so it's so crazy. But I'm always trying to incessantly learn. You learn the craft, and I admit it's sometimes it's like I just find enjoyment in it. I mean, I don't find it like cumbersome or anything like that. It's just a part of if you like Stephen King says, you can't be a good writer if you're not a good reader. It's impossible.
Yes. Do you have a favorite thriller at the moment or author?
Right now, I'm reading a one by an author by name. Her name is Frida McFadden, and it's a book called Teacher. And I tell you, it's gripping. Her stuff is just gripping. I don't know if you ever heard of her or not.
I have not. I'll check her out.
Frida McFadden. She's got a ton of books, and every one of them, it gets you by the collar and it drags you through the book. You just got to keep turning, and I love it. So yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. I just finished it actually, and it was a great book. Great book.
You mentioned red flags a couple times at this point. Let's get into that a little bit because it's one of my favorite topics. We are going to have a follow-up episode pretty soon. Um, I'm gonna get people to kind of send in their red flags anonymously. Um, do you have a personal favorite and then how to deal with it?
um, Personal favorite red flag. Let me think about this because there's so many.
There's so many.
There's so many. The one I think that, of course, we all hate. We're all freelancers. Most ghostwriters are freelancers, but it's the author that wants to micromanage, wants to, get down into what, are you working on my book today? What are you working on? This isn't right. We need to do this. And then it kind of, it's when a person's a micromanager, they instinctively they kind of bark orders at you, and because they want things done their way, and the only way to do it is to be aggressive, per se. And those are the type of individuals that I don't like to work with. Now I've worked with them and will continue to work with them, but I do create barriers, and that's, I think, the important part when working with any author is I'm all about the collaboration and the mesh of an author and a ghostwriter. Your personalities must match, and you have to there has to be a trust factor, and you have to get along. But it's like, I always up front talk about these things to deliver, trying to solve, again, going back to the first draft and delivering, it's trying to soften the blow, and because, micromanagers, they want your phone number, they want to be able to text you all the time, and you got to have barriers and you got to have privacy. And I tell them why. I explain to why. And for new ghostwriters out there, here's a great reason to tell them, these type of individuals, is that you have got to have time to write. You have to be creative. You cannot be disturbed at all hours of the day and night. And plus, you do have to have your personal life as well. If not, then your professional work is going to suffer. It just will. So I always just gently explain that I've got to, like, my daily routine every single day, Charlie, is I write in the mornings. Mornings are my time. I don't have phones on. I don't have email on. I don't have anything other than that author that I'm working for in my head. No distractions. Then the afternoons are really spent on marketing, posts, articles, catching up on emails, and those kind of things. So I always explain to these authors, that's the process for me. So if you're trying to reach me in the morning, don't expect something until the afternoon. So that way it sets barriers, that kind of thing. But micromanagers are probably the toughest individuals that I work with and have worked with, as a red flag. When I see it, even if I don't see it at first and it crops up early in the book or that kind of thing, I try to nip it right in the bud. I try to nip it, but if not, it's just going to get worse. It's going to escalate. I had a bad experience with one of my first books, and he was a micromanager, and he really drug me over the coals, and but I was a new ghostwriter. I didn't, it wasn't my first guy with HarperCollins. It was another gentleman, but I don't think his book's out there anymore. But anyway, it was just tough to work with him because he was a micromanager, to the point of, like, detriment. It was like really kind of scary. And that's when I realized I can't do this anymore with this type of individual, you know.
Well, it doesn't help that there's all kinds of technology that enables micromanaging. I mean, the most egregious that I can think of is Google Docs.
Absolutely. Google Docs is, to me, I use it. I don't like to use it, but it's invasive. It's very invasive because of an author can get in there at any time, day or night, which is fine. But there, you know, you're getting these notifications in the middle of the night that, hey, the authors are telling you something, this and that, and it becomes a nightmare. You know, I had one just recently. I had a document in Google Docs, and a strange person was in there. They didn't introduce themselves. I had no idea they had access, and they were basically in there editing the work. And I took them out of there immediately, and it was like, how did they even get in there, and who gave them, you know? And I haven't spoken to the author yet, but no, it's scary, and you know, that's invasive. And you're right, Google Docs is very egregious. I wish there was another system to use besides just Word, but you know, we have that. So yeah.
And there's even they don't even have to be weighing in. There's always up in the corner the little like precocious armadillo or whatever. It'll give it some nickname, and you know that's
You know,
someone
that's them exactly. Yeah, they're watching.
surveillance.
Yeah, they're surveying. Yeah, it's like voyeurism kind of thing. It's crazy. It makes you feel uneasy. You know, like.
What is your like piping hot like start a bar brawl ghostwriting hot take that people would hotly
I think
contest?
that what most authors that use ghostwriters, I think the one absolute fact that they miss beyond, because you know, most people are focused on fees and money and how much it's going to cost me and how much time is it going to take. But the biggest takeaway, the hot take for me, is business authors or any author, anyone who's writing a book with a ghostwriter needs to understand that that work is your legacy. It is your absolute legacy. It's going to go out into the world. You've got to be proud of it, and it transcends. It transcends time. It transcends your life onto the page, and that's worth more than money. That's worth more than the 6 months you're going to work with a ghostwriter. Having that product, having something that you can be proud of for your family, your friends, your children, your grandchildren. To me, that's the biggest hot take. You know, and your staff, your company. If you're a business thought leader, these are all things that you want to make everyone proud in your circles. And that's the one thing, that's the hot take. You know, keep that in your mind, that what you're writing and what you're working, what the ghostwriter is helping you write is going to be part of your lasting legacy. It's really important. And I want to say this, as a writer, ghostwriter, the one thing that I hold on to every single day is that fact that I want to make the author, I want to help bring the author's legacy to the page honorably, 110%, right? Because even though my name may not be on that cover or a byline or a part of that project, it's still a part of my legacy. It's something that I'm leaving, that my children and grandchildren can say that my grandfather was involved in this book. My dad did this. My grandpa did this. And so what I'm trying to say in a long way is I take pride in that work, in making sure that the author shines for them, number one, but number two, for me and my legacy. It's important.
I get chills when I think about some of those moments I've had with authors where we both know that that's what we are committing to the page, and it's such an honor to be there for that.
It really is. Yeah, man. Yeah, it makes me a little bit emotional because
Totally.
I've cried with my authors. They've cried with me. I had one gentleman I wrote a book for, and he was describing his father's funeral, and I wrote that chapter, and he emailed me, and he said, "I'm not kidding. You had me in tears." And that was the biggest compliment probably of my ghostwriting life, because here I am describing this man's funeral that he experienced already with his father. And then I brought it to the page, and it inspired more emotion again, that he was actually moved by his own work, his own story. that's powerful, and again, most of the time these collaborations with the ghostwriters, it goes back to having a personality mesh, because you end up sharing these personal things with each other, and if you get along in any way, shape, or form, there's going to be a connection, and these connections, that's where the authenticity comes into play with the book, and where real tears are shed, real emotions are shared, and I'll be the first to say that. I mean, when something hits me and touches me, I let the author know, and I make sure that work, describes that emotion, that intensity, that kind of thing.
Mm. And it's interesting you mentioned that, like, to take it back to things someone starting out should know. I have yet to be hired to ghostwrite something on the basis of my portfolio or my resume or credentials or anything like that. There have been situations where that helps me legitimize myself, or kind of start a conversation, or it's impressive, or someone, it puts them at ease knowing that I have actually finished a book, or I've had an Amazon bestseller.
Right.
Every person who has wanted to work with me, it has been because of that personal connection, hitting it off. We get along for what, and that goes to what you were saying about the how we don't, this isn't a cutthroat game, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to click with everyone. Not everyone's going to click with me. Um,
That's right. Yeah.
but when I think about the marketing and networking side of what we do, I try to communicate what it is that someone might click with to people in my, I hate this word, but like, network. So it's kind of obvious which project might be one for me, and that's going to be different for you and
Well,
for
no, I'm the
everyone
same
else.
way. When I'm marketing, when I'm talking about things out there, I'm talking about things that are in my wheelhouse, and I hope that it, sparks a, interest in someone who, wants to write a book in that type of, area. Um, I don't. I understand. I understand what you're saying. I don't think any. I've never gotten a job either from my credentials. It's about once I meet someone and being a real person, being an authentic person. I take pride in it. And just today, I mean, hopefully you can see that in me, that, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm transparent as can be, candid, honest, and, I'm easy to work with. And just like I could tell that you're easy to work with, just from meeting you today. That's what people latch onto. It's not, it goes again, when I meet an author and we start talking about money, I hate talking about money. Money
Mhm.
is it pays the bills and it's necessary. I get it, but I always try to get past that, because I want to get them into that mindset of, hey, it's more than just the money. It's more about, again, going back to the legacy, what you're getting ready to do as a lifetime type of project. Something that, you know thousands and millions of people say they want to write a book, but not everyone does. But once I show them the value in doing that, and then having someone who's genuinely, interested in helping them do that, that's where I get my jobs. That's exactly where I get my jobs. I have no fear once I meet someone on the camera that, because when I don't meet with everyone. I mean, I get a lot of people, our kickers, and email me about things, but it's only the serious people that I really want to work with, and I really show them that who I am. I'm no bones. I really just show who I am, because that's the person you're going to be working with for the next 6-8 months. It's really simple. You can't act. You can't do that. And the same with the author. They need to just come forward, be themselves, and let's figure out if we can work together. Yeah.
Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time. Where can listeners find you?
Thank you for having me on your show. It's been a wonderful conversation. If anyone's interested in my ghostwriting, my services, they can easily find me at jeffreymangus.com, Jeffrey Mangus.com, and you can see my work and learn a little bit about me. And I would love to talk to you about your book. If you have an idea out there, I would love to talk to you about that.
Good stuff. Jeff, thanks again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
If you have an epic story, I'd love to hear it. You can find me at dailyprose.com or on LinkedIn. My links and Jeff's and the link to his book are in the show notes. Thanks for listening.